All right, we're going to be in chapter 14, the Great Tribulation. Now, we're not going to be able to cover the whole chapter in one setting because it's long, and there's a lot to the overview of the Great Tribulation. We'll get through as much as we can today. Most of what we're going to be talking about today is a cashless society. We'll get through, there'll be a few things ahead of it, but that's going to be mostly what we're going to discuss today. And those of you with a little bit of gray in your hair, how much have you seen society shift from cash only to checks, then to debit cards, and then, oh, mine isn't in mine's up there, to, I now have a smart card with a chip in it. A nice little chip in it. I insert the chip. And because of that shift, how many of you now have direct deposit? How many of you now at your employer, as a matter of fact, is mandatory direct deposit? How long has it been since any of you actually saw a paycheck and cashed it? I mean, it's pretty rare anymore to actually see cash money. I mean, if you give cash money to a store, they look at you like you're a crazy person, like, what am I supposed to do with that? Not all do, but quite a few do. And as time has passed, that's become more and more prevalent. More and more employers are requiring direct deposit. More and more banks are requiring, more and more merchants are requiring that we use in a form of electronic. As a matter of fact, Mindy and I, as you guys know, right before we left, got new phones. Our new phones have Apple Pay on it. I don't even have to have my debit card with me anymore if I set that app up. All I have to do is take my phone out of my pocket and touch the little thingy, mabobber. Hey, that's a high-tech word for it, thingy mabobber. And I do just swipe my phone by it. And my phone, my Apple phone, will automatically conduct a debit transfer or a debit transaction, a point of sale transfer or a sale for me. Now, to us, that seems like, I don't know, it kind of sounds a little Orwellian or a little Big Brothery. But to those that are teenagers here, that's common now. So as common as cash transactions were for us, Apple Pay and debit card transactions are that common to them. So as they age, and y'all will age, it's going to happen. We were all teenagers once too, a long time ago. Things will become more advanced. And as we get into the chapter, as we read through this, we'll find that the technology is already available for people to receive the mark. Yeah, it's already available. As a matter of fact, you can get an ID chip now implanted in you that's only about the size of a grain of rice. And if you remember when we first started this, we talked about a company in Northern Plains states that had a big rolling out party. People were buying sodas at the vending machine just by waving their hand across it. How many of you have a pet? How many of you have a pet that's chipped? Because, I mean, you don't want your dog getting lost, right? And if he does run off, I know Petey probably ain't doing much running anymore, but he might make it to the front yard like, nah, good enough. But ain't that awesome? If the pound comes up to your pet, they can just weep. They know whose it is. Ain't that great? Yeah, it is, isn't it? Wouldn't it be awesome? Wouldn't it just be amazing if all babies, if we just went ahead and put one of those little chips in them? So if they get kidnapped or lost, instead of sending out an entire army of people, they could just fly a drone over and beep, 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 beep. Right there she is. Right there he is. Wouldn't that be great? What about soldiers if they get captured? Wouldn't that be amazing? We could just fly a drone over and their RFID chip could ping the drone and we'd know their exact location and we could go get them. Wouldn't that be great? I mean, how many lives would it save? What's that? Yeah, sure they could. Shh. No. No, we can trust our enemies and we can trust big business and big government to not track us in our purchases. As a matter of fact, we were on 4 southwestern planes, right? 4 southwestern planes down and back. So we made a transfer in Orlando down and back. Get home, have supper, next day get up. I'm going through Facebook and stuff, catching up on emails and blah, blah, blah. Go to YouTube. Guess what the first ad was that popped up on YouTube? Southwest. And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder how that happened. What's that? No. As a matter of fact, when I was shopping last year for the new mower we bought, and I was looking at all the varieties of lawn tractors and blah, 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 every time I would either log into some social media account or email, I would have some sort of notification just for my Google searches as to what I was looking up. Ads for John Deere, ads for Husqvarna, ads for Craftsman, blah, blah, blah. It's like, this is getting ridiculous. I mean, talk about paying attention. And we're not even to the mark yet. And we're already seeing this technology being put in place. Now, we know that the first half of the tribulation is terrible. There is natural disasters and it kills almost half the population that's left. But it gets worse. That's why the second half is called the Great Tribulation. It starts out with that 7-year treaty. Then about halfway through, the Antichrist decides he's God. And he's going to take over the religious system. He crushes the Babylonian religion, which is the blending of all the religions. He crushes that, takes it over. And Jesus says at this time in history is so bad in Matthew 24, 21 through 22, that if God doesn't cut it short, if he doesn't put a stop to it, that there wouldn't be anybody left. There'd be no flesh left. But for the sake of the elect, he cuts it short. So when I read that, for the sake of the elect, for those who, cut those days short, that reminds me that even in this period of time, there will still be those who are being saved. There will still be those who will still come to salvation. I guess the best way to describe it is hell on earth. I mean, the Antichrist is throwing everything he can at humanity, and God is pouring out his judgment on humanity for our outright rebellion. It's an amazing time in history, future history. It's a time when things will be changing so rapidly. Sin will abound to the point that we would be shocked. But yet here it's just it's just business as usual. Sometime after the rapture, New York, London, and Brussels, whether they get destroyed in a rebellion, you remember the 3 little kings that stand up and fight and get crushed? Whether it's those, somehow the world trade will move back to Babylon like it was originally. All of it will move back to Babylon. That's where they'll set up the economic system. That's where these things will start to take place. That's where this cashless society that the one world government, one world people are trying to put in place. It used to be at one time they talked about maybe making 3 currencies or 2 currencies, one for Europe, one for the Americas, blah, blah, blah. But now with the technology that we have, it's becoming more and more prevalent to be cashless. That there's just no need to have cash. I mean, think about the muggings. Muggings would go down if we didn't have cash, right? I mean, bank robberies would go down because there wouldn't be any need for cash in the bank because there is no cash anymore, right? There wouldn't be trade problems. Go ahead. No, there's no such thing. That doesn't happen. People don't get their identities stolen. Well, you guys got to quit thinking logically and making sense, using common sense and stuff like that. I mean, it's okay that the government takes care of us. It's okay that they enforce health care on us. Now, isn't it? Yeah, exactly. It's at that midpoint that the Antichrist, the beast, is going to force everybody to take his mark. And it's a life or death decision. You either take the mark or you die. It may be a slow death because you starve to death, because you're homeless. And with the way things are set up right now, technologically speaking, nothing needs to happen technologically. Honestly. How many of you have the new secure driver's license issued by the state of Indiana? I do. You flip it over, there's a barcode on the back of it, and they can scan that barcode and they can tell you all about me. So if they can do that with a piece of plastic that's only about this big, how much longer will it be before they can do it with something this big? And as we get into this, we'll see that VeriChip, and now, I forget the name of it, Secure ID or whatever it's called, has the technology in place. It's already there, it's just not being utilized. And they're pitching it the way I pitched it to begin with. That it's this amazing, awesome thing, and there's so much that can be done, and it's so great. But we all know that it's not great, because the higher the level of scrutiny, the less freedom we actually have. And to be quite honest with you, at this point, our freedoms have eroded to the point that we might as well just go ahead and face the fact this is pretty much a socialist society. And I know that's difficult to swallow for those of us who were born free, but the bottom line is it's going to continue to ramp up. Now, a lot of times I've heard people talk about, it even talks about it here in the book, that people are worried that, oh no, I got a tattoo, did I just get the mark of the beast? No, you didn't, you just got a tattoo. You can't take the mark of the beast by accident. It is a conscious, willful decision. I like the quote they have here on page 225. God is standing in heaven, letting men and women into his presence. He's not trying to keep them out. So many people think that's what's going on. God's trying to keep them out, and God's going to let them take the mark, and God's going to just, even if you accidentally got in the wrong line, But that's not the way it is. Like your salvation was a conscious decision, one you were aware of, one you understood. This is taking the mark is going to be that way. It will be a decision that you did. And anyone with even just a small measure of the Holy Spirit in them, even those carnal Christians will understand that to take that mark is meaning that you are worshiping the beast. There is no accident. And it is also unforgivable. You can't take it back. Once it's done, it's done. Once that decision is made, it's made, and it doesn't change. And to be quite honest with you, I don't think most would want to change, because at this point, if you're already worshiping the beast and the Antichrist and the false prophet and all that, you would be, I don't know if the word's right, so far into it that you wouldn't want to step back out of it, that you wouldn't be able to see the horror of what was actually going on. And like I said, that choice is a done deal once it's done. It's irreversible, and that's sad that so many will, and so many will just not even notice that's what they're doing. They're just like, woohoo, this is great. You'll see how lemmings will just run right off a cliff. That's exactly what's going to happen. There'll be a mob mentality, if you will. You guys have all seen the hype for a big sporting event, Daytona 500, Super Bowl, World Series. Taking the mark will have, I think, that kind of a hype ahead of it. That'll be an amazing thing. We're going to save so many people's lives. It's going to be great. It's going to be this utopian society. It's going to be amazing. And that's what they're going to pitch it as. And then some of the other things that I've already talked about counterfeiting, racketeering, any crimes that involve cash, all that'll be gone. We won't have that problem. Don't worry about them hackers. They'll make it hacker-proof, I'm sure. Just like everything else. And the crazy part... Yeah, he'll be the biggest hacker around, to be honest. You're right. And we've already, like I said, already talked about our ATM cards, our debit cards. All our purchases. Matter of fact, now you can take a picture of a check and send it to your bank. You don't even have to have a hard copy. Send it to them, and the deposit's made. So the things are speeding up. And as technology increases, of course, it makes it more easy, if you will. It makes it more available. And as time progresses and we get more and more accustomed to it, it makes it easier for people to swallow. Because as freedom and choice and the ability to dictate your own life to separate from a government entity or from a corporate entity. As those erode slowly and ever so gently, we don't notice it. It's like the old frog in a boiling pan. You don't crank it up right away. You turn it up real slow and just let it kind of simmer. And that's exactly what's happening. And they ask on page 229, would governments be in favor of compulsory adherence to it? Of course they would. They talk about $200 to $1 trillion of unpaid taxes every year because of cash transactions that are not recorded. How many of you guys went to a small business and don't answer, paid cash for something, and you know the guy never recorded it as a transaction, so he didn't have to pay cash for it, so he didn't have to pay taxes on it. The government loses $200 to $1 trillion a year, 200 billion to $1 trillion every year. Of course the government's going to be in favor of finding a way to collect that money. I mean, that's a stack of cash, or in this case, a stack of electronic ones and zeros. And that, they predict that eventually that a cashless society, going cashless, will be a presidential or a political debate in the future, and might be pretty close to that would come up in, say, a near election or the next election, or even a few down the road. Financial control translates to total control. If we think about the healthcare system, if we think about your paycheck, how you pay your bills, if you don't have the mark, you can't pay your electric bill. If you don't have the mark, you can't pay your mortgage. If you don't have the mark, you can't go to work to even make the money to do this. So what happens when the financial system gets hijacked? You either submit or you're homeless. You either submit or, and that's how it'll end up being. It'll be forced on people that much. And once it goes national, and you have national Big Brother, how much harder would it be for those national entities to group together and make it an international, to make it a one world thing? And once Christians are out of the way, because we stand in the way of this because of the Holy Spirit within us and our understanding of what's coming on, what that does is it hinders that progress with us being here, with us out of the picture, that progression toward this cashless one world order sort of stuff. There's nothing to slow it down. And with a great catastrophe such as the rapture, and that will be a great catastrophe. You guys ever notice that whenever there's a great catastrophe, we all always give up a little bit? It's always forced on us that we always give up freedom for security. How the masses will scream for security. But when they scream for security, they give up freedom. And if you take 2/3, a quarter of the population just up and disappears, and you're going to hear a lot of screaming for that sort of thing. And then as we get on here, it's going to talk about how, and this was written in 2009, so what they covered is actually kind of obsolete as far as debit purchases and Chp and the personal IDs and things like that, what that company has done over these last few years. It's already well beyond in these last few years as to what has been accomplished and what will be accomplished. Where was that quote? One thing I didn't know was that in 2005, September 12th, John Roberts, when Justice John Roberts was sworn in, I did not remember this, that at that time Vice President Joe Biden asked him, can a microchip tag be implanted in a person's body to track their every movement? There is actual discussion about that. You, Judge Roberts, will have to rule on that. It's amazing, isn't it? That the Vice President at that time asked Judge Roberts, you'll have to, before your time's up, you'll rule on whether it's legal to make someone take a mandatory chip. It's interesting, isn't it, that it's went that far already, that at that level of government, they're already talking about it. And it also talks about how the healthcare system was hijacked by the government, how with them taking it over, it was another segment of freedom that had to come under government control for this one world order and socialism, and then eventually one world religion and one world economy. It's part of that. It has to happen. And they already had it happen, which is sad, but true. And some of the other things that they list. What about predators, sexual predators and criminals? If they were chipped, and you think, well, that still wouldn't be right. But what about ankle monitors now that they use that track them? Isn't it the same thing? It's pretty much the same technology. The same technology exists now for this mark to be possible. Where all people have to do is just wave their hand over something or their forehead. Corporations are in favor of it because your ID will allow you to gain access to your computer, files that you need, but not to, the other things that you're just putting your hands on your keyboard will unlock and have your password and everything on it. So of course corporations and companies are just loving the idea of having, trying to think, how long was it, when we both worked out there, we quit using a time clock or a time card a long time ago. Mm-hmm. And they actually put in out where we worked a hand scanner that you had to put your hand in and it measured your fingers and read your fingerprints and stuff. That's how you clocked in and out, was a hand scanner.
Well, I did that when I was still out.
You had the hand scanner as well? Yep.
Right,
At first time that happened made me a little nervous. I'm thinking, well, they need to scan, and you know which hand it was? Your right hand or your forehead? And I'm thinking, I don't know if I want to stick my hand in there. I'm thinking, I'll either stick my hand in there or I don't get a paycheck, one of the two. And that's how it was. You either do it or you don't. I'm thinking, I don't like this idea. And it wasn't that I was worried about germs. I was worried about that numbing or that conditioning that eventually, they'll just put a little chip in there and just be beep as you walk in the door. How many people now when you walk into your place of business just have a card, you don't even scan your hand, you just walk by the time clock? Yeah, you're old school. Yeah, we know. Now, one of them something else they covered that I didn't recognize, I didn't think about. Remember when, I forget what year they said it was, 2009, when all our TVs and everything went digital? And you had to buy a new TV. I thought it was just a ploy to make us buy new TVs. What I didn't know or didn't really understand was that the airwaves were full, that the bandwidth for analog was full. I'm not a computer guy, so I don't understand what that means. But they needed to free up airspace for RFID chips. So that when your chip, when you walk by things, registers where you're at. It'll unlock doors for you. It will let you buy a soda. It'll let you get a coffee at Starbucks. Because it's constantly admitting your location. It's constantly on. There is no beep beep, shut it off. Because right now I can go up there and turn my phone off and nobody knows where I'm at. But if I leave it on, if somebody wanted to ping my phone, they could, if they had the technology, and find out that I'm about 5 feet from it, 10 feet. And that's what these RFID chips, and they use RFID chips all over the place now. Packages, Walmart's a big one that uses it. Those things are huge, the quantities of materials that they ship and goods that they ship. Those little tells on, beep, beep. It's exactly what it's doing. It's either reading a barcode or it's reading that little chip that goes, nee, when you walk out the front door, and it's like, oh man, that stupid thing didn't get turned off. Stop thief. You're like, no, really, I got my receipt. It's reading that stuff. and they use it on products all the time. We're using our RFID chips on our dogs and our animals and tagging them. The technology is already there for the mark. And that was kind of the point of this first part of this chapter was the technology exists. All they have to do is change a coding with the 666 number to make it an Antichrist situation. That's all there is to it. Society is already primed for cashlessness. The systems are in place for the society to go cashless. The systems are in place already for this sort of thing to happen. And that should encourage us, if you will, to be more proactive in sharing our faith. With the understanding that we have what's coming. And I know there's a lot of people that if you tell them, hey look, this is what's going on. This Affordable Health Care Act was not about affordable health care. You know, the Patriot Act was not about patriotism. It was about getting the NSA the power and ability to spy on domestics, terrorists, and people who they deem terrorists or a threat to society. Hold it, wait. Didn't the IRS just get in a whole bunch of trouble for denying conservative Christian groups? And you know, that was part of the Patriot Act that happened way back. But it's okay to give them that much authority over us, right? Because they'll never ever use it against us. But when you talk like that, people think you're some sort of conspiracy nut. That, oh, that's crazy. It's just nuts. No, not really. Not when you consider what the Bible tells us, the facts of the Bible, and the facts of what we see. And we're just talking about what we see. We're not talking about what's actually going on behind the scenes that we don't know about in those closed door meetings. And if we can see clearly that the stages are being set, that the systems are in place, then we need to understand that time on earth is getting short. You guys have any questions on the technology part of the mark? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, I do. I think some of them know. I think there's a large majority that don't because this is the way it was. Like my parents, it was different for my parents than it is for me for technology, as it is for my children, as it is for my grandchildren. And as each generation passes, the things that this generation says, oh, that's crazy. This generation's like, well, it's everyday stuff. Yeah, like airplanes and, you know. All right.
But I'm saying it's so I talk to people, and they really don't even have a clue what's going on around them every day.
I understand. A lot don't.
I mean, you say something to them, what are you talking?
Well, it's not like that. Come on, Grandma, you're just getting old and out of touch.
Grandma understands.
Yeah, okay. And you're okay with it too. Yeah. As I age a little bit, I'm getting where I'm a little bit more like, fine. Say what you will. But yeah, what they perceive as normal is completely different from what we experienced, you know, just a generation or two ago. I mean, there's a generation that went from horse and buggies to a man on the moon in less than 100 years. And technology hasn't slowed down. I mean, at this point, it's only limited by some nerdy guy's imagination.
When I was about 6 years old, farmers were going from horses to tractors.
Mm-hmm.
And I was older than that yet, and when they crashed, they still brought the wagons with the horses and stuff, so
Mhm.
over the bale.
It's not like that anymore, is it? Nah. Some of it's not. Not all technology is bad. Don't get me wrong. Not all technology is bad. But just like any other tool, in the wrong hands, it can be used for evil. Just like any other tool. Any other questions?
So you feel like those that are being chosen are taking the mark of the beast, but it's not going to be compulsory until the time when this tribulation
I don't think those that are chipped right now have taken the mark of the beast. I don't think it's the mark yet, because I don't think it's coded with his numbers yet. At least I haven't heard anything about it yet. I don't think it is yet, because the Bible specifically says that happens in the midpoint of the tribulation. So those that are chipped now, and there are a bunch of people that are chipped, a lot. I don't think they've taken the mark, but I do think that they're more inclined to later, just because it will be so common to them. That will be no problem. It's just, they will think it as a software upgrade to their chip. I don't think it is yet, because the Bible is specific on the time frame of when it happens. And we're not to that point yet. Do I think they're on a slippery slope? Oh yeah, real slippery. I think it's a real dangerous slope too.
We don't have crystal clear. I trust your judgment, but there's some ambiguity about when this is. There could be other people in crystal clear. It won't be midpoint tribulation.
Oh, yeah, it could happen anytime.
I know.
I wouldn't be straight up honest. I'd go hungry before I take the microchip. One of my debit cards close enough for me.
Amen.
That's close enough for me. Oh, you guys still get that? Okay.
What's the government paying government subsidy? Yeah, but they would like to direct deposit. You can still direct, but they would like to direct.
Yeah, it's yeah.
It would be their preference, not
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's just, it's supposed to do away with the paper and the cash and all that hassle, but that hassle is freedom. Yeah, a lot of places don't anymore. It's a scanner of some sort that they either got your ID card or your handprint or something. It's, yeah, that is surprising. That's good. Good.
You said that you had to accept the chip from
Right.
the tablets. What are they going to do with babies? They're going to have to put chips into babies?
Probably will.
They'll be born.
Probably be born with them.
I think they already
Check the mother and go bring.
Yeah, they chip the mother and transfer to. No, that's an interesting question, because until the child's of the age of accountability and can make that decision, I know it's only a short time frame. It's only a 3.5-year time period, but there will be babies born, and I've wondered about that too. And the Bible doesn't say if the babies are protected or if they get the mark as well.
It does say that it has to be chosen that
Yeah,
they take the
you have
mark.
to choose it. So maybe children won't have to be chipped until they're 18 or 16 or 21. Because, well, I ain't gonna say that. That'd just be cruel. Any other questions? All right. That's it.